How you doing? So this morning I want to follow on from last night's accountability video. And I want to talk about accountability from the other end of the perspective. So yesterday was in regards to hurting someone, and today's is about being the person that is hurt. And it's really controversial, my opinion on accountability on on this side of the scale, because so many people think, well, how can I be accountable for the way that other people treat me? And you can, and it gives you massive power to move out of that mindset of victim mentality. Now, being a victim is part of acceptance, so realising what is actually happening to you, and accepting it. So accepting that you are a victim, but then moving forward, you do actually have to take accountability for your actions that led you to get to that place in your life. And I have swayed like a seesaw between victim and I'll say perpetrator, abuser, for quite a lot of years. And I had found myself in victim mentality very recently, and most would say that I was wrong to think that I had accountability in that. And I think that in every, how can I say, in every time that I have become a victim of somebody hurting me, I've been able to leave the situation very, very quickly and right myself. And I'm not saying getting better quicker is the right way to do it, because healing does take a lot of time, and it doesn't have to be quick to be better. I still heal every day from stuff that's happened to me a million years ago. Healing is just such a long spiral journey, and there's things that we can do and tools that we can have that can move us along quicker and safer, I believe, with grace and dignity. And so there's a couple of things that I want to talk about from my experience, and this is not going to be a nice thing to talk about. So if you are going to be triggered, then just be aware that I'm going to talk about some difficult stuff in this one, because I feel like difficult situations and scenarios need to be talked about, because, and from the point of views of what I'm going to talk to them about, because it changes things, and I'll explain why. Okay, so when I was a child, I was sexually abused, and my body and my brain did amazing work in trying to forget what had actually happened to me, because out of probably all the things that have happened to me, that was one of the most painful things, and probably one of the things that had messed me up so much because of who it was, when it was, and lots of other circumstances around it. And up until my early 20s, I thought it was actually just a nightmare. Like, my brain had done such good coping mechanisms to try and suppress it, that I actually thought it was just bad dreams. After a really short stint of therapy, it all came to light that it was actually true, and it actually happened to me. And I actually spoke to the to the man that did it to me, a few years back, and he had told me that he had actually told his now wife what he'd done, and this was before they got married. He told me that he couldn't have. He knew that he wanted her for life, forever, and he knew that he couldn't go into that marriage without telling her, and he knew that he would lose everything. I mean, you would do, wouldn't you? You wouldn't. I mean, nobody knows. Nobody knows apart from us. Nobody had to know. She would have never known, because I had not told anybody. So realistically, he told her and sacrificed his whole future to take accountability for what he'd done, to right the wrong. And when he told me that, it was instantly like I knew he was sorry. I knew that he had made a mistake. I knew how much it meant to him to right the wrong, because he would have lost so much. He would have lost everything. And obviously it would have got out, and he would have had to have started telling people, had the relationship broken down, because he would have had to explain himself. And to me, it just went away. It healed the wound. I don't. It doesn't even enter my head anymore. I don't think of him as like a bad person. I don't. Yeah, and obviously that's a lot of work that I've done on my part, as well as his action as well, to take accountability. But I wanted to tell you that because for me that is the power of taking ownership of your actions, and sacrificing yourself, sacrificing everything, sacrificing your life to really change. And everything in his life must have changed at that moment, and look at the gift that he got for doing that. He had found a woman that would stand by him even in his greatest mistake. Like, I just think that is incredible. What kind of love that she must have for him. It's making me want to cry. That the amount of love and unconditional love that she must have. What a light in the world that she can make so much space for him to be able to be brave enough to do that, number one. And then to accept him in his worst, and move on with him and make a marriage with him and have a future with him. Like, that is incredible. Can you imagine the love and trust between those two people? Like, that is the greatest gift of all for me. And I think as that really was one of the worst things that I had to process in my life. And I can only think of him as being extremely brave, and I'm proud of him and of it. And I must say that is work that I have done internally, but I know that he's sorry, and from making mistakes myself and understanding that there's a lot of stuff, there's a lot of reasons, there's a lot of circumstances, there's a lot of hurt behind mistakes, that I can empathise with how much courage it took for him to move forward and do that, to sacrifice everything. to be able to show me that he was truly sorry. It's like repenting your sins almost, you know. He really did sacrifice everything. So I wanted to share that today and show it from another point of view. And just to finish off the video, because I only want this to be a little short one today. So accepting where we are and accepting that we are a victim in a really horrible situation is one thing. Taking accountability for where we are in that moment is another. Now, you can liken this to lots of situations, but I'll just put it into a really small bracket of self-love. If you thought anything about yourself, then you would have protected yourself first over becoming a victim. Because we all see the red flags. We don't need posts and memes and things like that to show us what the red flags are. We know. And we know that by the way that our body reacts to people. Whether we choose to ignore it or not is up to us. We don't need things pointing out to us. So when we're stuck in really hard situations and we know that people are not right for us and we know that we're upset and we know we're not feeling right, it's only for us to decide when it is enough, and it is for us to decide how we got there. So, for example, I have been in quite a few abusive relationships, and every one of them has been slightly different. Now, but all of them have been traits that I had to endure when I was a child. And it's only through extensive work that I have been able to take accountability for the relationships that I've put myself in, because they were replicas of what I had to endure as a child. And that's the reason, well, one of the reasons why I stayed so long in these relationships, because I clouded my judgment. So how can I shorten this real down? I'm just aware of the time. So in my home where I grew up, there was love. My mum provided me with consistent love, compassion, everything that I could ever want for as a child. But then she stayed in a relationship that was volatile, abusive, and not good for any of us. And she stayed because she felt like she had to for us. Right? This was her mentality. He had crushed her soul to the point where she didn't feel like she could make it on her own. And that's what happens in abusive relationships. I'll do another post about that to go into detail. But my mum did not take accountability for what she was doing because of her mindset. And that's something that I had to make peace with, and I've had to make peace with time and time again as I've got into these abusive relationships, because it set the stall out for me to keep accepting abusive relationships because I assumed that was love. And it came in lots of different forms, and this is why healing is so vast and is a spiral, because you're constantly going around like this. You feel like you've healed one thing and something else will come up for healing, and you'll go round and round in a cycle. These are karmic cycles. But if you're finding yourself in a situation where you are feeling, this is not for anybody else to tell you, for you, if you are feeling trapped, not heard, triggered, anxious, depressed, there's lots of things I could say there. It's up to you to decide that you are the victim, and for you to start doing work on yourself to remove yourself from that mentality. Because if you stay in victim mentality, you will keep yourself in in those kind of relationships, those kind of situations. Now, it's a much bigger topic to talk about, but accountability for where you are in that moment can really give you some powerful tools to move out of that situation. Take ownership. Take ownership. Honestly, it's controversial as fuck, but for me, it's a powerful, powerful tool. And I'm hoping to do lots of work with people on accountability. Never mind what anybody else is doing. You can keep passing the blame. It's that person keeping me trapped. It's keeping me trapped. It's an illusion. It's an illusion. You will find if you release yourself from these fear-based thoughts that life will surprise you. You will be gifted with love and support and everything that you could ever need when you start taking accountability. I promise.